Hi. Is the audio working? Yeah, looks like the audio is working. That's good. Hello. Um, Welcome back to more game development streams. I didn't advertise this stream. Streaming again. There we go. I advertised it. Hi, Smachel. What did we do last time? I wrote half of a scripting hook. So when I run this, it spits out a bunch of numbers on the command line saying how long the level has been running for, which is very useful. How did that work? It worked through this line of code, which has a script it calls an update function. Why has that got yellow underlined? Too many arguments, that's not true. With some parameters which called through to some template stuff. All the template nonsense. And the other half of that, there's the call. Yeah, that could be better. And then we did the other half, which is binding stuff into the script, so the script can call back to the C++ side. And we made a callback, stored a pointer to a standard function that implements the callback into a container so that it gets tidied up, and then pushed it to a C function callback from Lua, which pulls out the pointer, and then didn't actually do anything because it was late, and I was confused and tired. And I did this in a previous project. I did something similar to this, and it was quite difficult, and I used a bunch of bizarre stuff, but then I did a bunch of reading today, and there's a lot simpler ways of doing the same thing. I'm going to put in some comments. Callback functions. Data for calling, storing callback functions. Callback function hooks. There we go. Commenting is done. Now it's perfectly clear. So the problem for the callback was we have the container and it has a value which is the function that's going to be called, so we can call that. But we need to give the args. But the args here are only template types, they're not actually variables. They're stored in the Lua stack. And you can only get them out by pulling them out via indexes with these helper functions that we made like 2 episodes ago. Are these episodes? I don't know. Now, so it needs these index values. So you can do that actually very easily. I just need to call another function. I'm going to call perform callback. I'm going to pass in the Lua state, L. I'm going to pass in that function that I have. And I'm going to pass in something from the utility standard header, which is a C++17 thing, which is standard index sequence for args. There we go. Well, index sequence 4, well, standard index sequence is a templated list of numbers. And index sequence 4 generates a increasing sequence of integers starting from 0 for as many as there is args in your arg pack. So all I need to do now is make another function that's got the return type. The args, and then these are size t indices. Oh, I don't like indices. Well, I mean I do. It's grammatically correct, but okay, indices. Nums. It's the nums I'm working with. No, I don't know. I always get paralyzed trying to come up with a really cool sounding but also logical name. Indices is the mathematically proper term. So this is now perform callback. It's got that Lewis state that we passed in earlier. It's got a const standard function, and that is of type return args. And it also has a standard index sequence of indices. But we're not going to give that a name because we don't actually care about the index sequence. We just want to extract the types from it. Or the types being increasing numbers. Okay. Hi, Marcos. I'm doing more template nonsense today. So, what do I do? I call the function. And I need to do a parameter pack thing. So I'm going to go to the script, or I'm already in script internal namespace. So I need to use getter for the arg type. Get L indices, but that's a 0 based and it should go from negative something up to negative 1, but instead I've got 0 up to however many, 0 to n, and it should be negative n minus 1 to negative 1. It's picking them off the top of the stack, which is negative numbers. So that function will also get something, which I have to hold as a return type. But let's just pretend that the return type is void for just now. So top of the stack is get top. What do I want to do? I want to change, so I've got this like 0, 1, 2, 3 say, and I want to make it negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. Which is size of indices, negative size of indices plus indices. Can I use const expra or whatever, const init? Is that going to work? Put one space plus indices. So if there's 4 things, it's going to start from -4 and add 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. So it'll end on -1. Now, will this compile? Nope. Expected primary, yeah, because I put the type in here. Okay. Will this compile? Yes. It compiles. That's actually not super surprising because a lot of template code doesn't actually get instantiated until you call it. So let's go back to our game and make a function that we combine. So we're going to put that in the init function. I'm going to mscript bind test. It's going to be called test because that's creative. It's going to take a string. So this is just a lambda, and it's going to just dump that string out into the debug window. There we go. So we've got a test function. We need to include IO string for those things to work. We wanted to add Lua scripting to your Puzzlist project, but it was a bit overwhelming. Yeah, Lua is like super concise, and the C library for it is really, really cool. But it's got its own, it's very Lua-istic. Just the way people say Python has a Pythonic style, Lua kind of has its own mentality. Everything is stacks and stuff, and once you understand a lot of it, it's super nice, but it is a little, it's got quite a learning curve in that regard, especially in terms of interoperability. My fault for using D instead of C, perhaps. I've never used D, but isn't it just more template nonsense than C++? I think everything is a template all the time. Or something. It annoys some people who like D. Cool, that did not compile. Because it's an overflow. This is an overflow. Static cast that to an int. Size of returns a size, that's not too surprising. That still did not compile. Instantiation of blah 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 blah. Incomplete type, script getter basic string used in nested name specifier. Okay. So I can't get a standard string here. Is it because it wants a standard string reference? Okay, that still did not compile. Well, it did compile, but it has a warning. Okay, so I don't want to do that. So I'm going to use standard decay type of argt. And decay type, I believe, is in type traits. D is simpler than C++, but not many libraries and things. Yeah. Okay, well, it doesn't surprise me too much that it's simpler than C++. I mean, they've failed at designing a language if it's more complex than C++. C++, sure, they've maximized flexibility and they've maximized feature set for a very long time, so it's like a Swiss Army knife of everything. But with that, it has so much random baggage. However, that compiles. Oh, now I'm very, very worried. This is definitely not going to work. It compiled, but what I don't understand is it did give me a warning, but then I think I recompiled it. Let's make a trivial change. Yes, here's our warning. Overflow and implicit constant conversion. What does that mean? Instantiation of blah 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 blah. Warning: overflow and implicit constant conversion. because indices are also a size t, so if it's adding an unsigned long maybe int onto a regular signed int, it's gonna upcast things and get. So there's a less horrendous way around this, which is, well, I just static cast it back to an int. But this index sequence, you can have an integer sequence, which I might try and do. And then you can specify the type. I hope Jai is not another failed attempt to replacing C++. Well, it might be. If I don't know if that's John Blow's, like, is that his goal to replace C++? I thought he was making a language that was good for a number of things that were relevant for game development. People shouldn't try and replace C++ because, like, it's like a Swiss Army knife of everything. You don't want to replace that because it's already kind of a bad idea. It's super useful because it can do all of the things you might want, some more elegantly than others, but it's if you try and out C++, you're fighting a losing battle. So yeah, I also hope it's not another failed attempt at replacing C++. Okay, well that compiled it. I've run the code. It didn't do anything because I never edited my script. Let's put test function hello Marcos. I'm putting that right there. Got string hello Marcos. Oh wow! You're internet famous now. I want to single you out, so I'm gonna say hello everyone. Yeah, there we go. So that worked. So all the template nonsense is a bit heavy, but the resulting API is super nice. So now I just say, hey, for my script, I want to bind a function test, and it's going to do this lambda or C function or whatever, and it'll just eat that with templates, and everything will be happy. Unfortunately, I've not done a whole bunch of things. For example, return types are not implemented because I was lazy. First things first, let's see if I can fix this integer sequence 4 thing. Can I make this an integer sequence 4? Is that a thing? Let me just look up in the CPP reference. Integer sequence. Helper. Index sequence is an integer sequence of size t. Oh, don't click on that. Make integer sequence. Make index sequence. Index sequence 4. Possible implementation for it in standard apply. Okay. There's no integer sequence 4. It's just going to be an index. So I'm making an index sequence for these args. Comes in there, and then I throw it away. Yeah, I can live with that. They've got 2 static casts. That's nasty. Well, it doesn't need to be negative. So if the stack has n items in Lua, they're numbered from 1 to n, and if you give -1, that's like giving n. So you can find out what n is, and then is it worth it? Does a callback always have the right number of things on the stack? Probably. I expect I could just do indices +1 and that would work. Probably. It would probably work. Well, it certainly works for having one thing in one function for one test case, so that's definitely going to work in all possible situations. So let's delete that right now, and then in 2 months I'll spend all day trying to figure out why it doesn't work. But future me can deal with that. Okay. So this is nice and simple, but there's more it could do. Yeah. Let's just copy paste this. Don't torture future you. Well, then why am I even making games? So this is if it's a void. If it has no return type, this is what it calls. If it has a return type, it needs to actually push the return type. So what the function calls, put a nice comment. No, I deleted a line of code. I'm going to savor the fact that there's less lines than before. I'm going to push to L, whatever that goes. So that should push the return type. No, because I also need to say it's of the return type, and I need to use standard decay type. Okay. Does that compile? Now I'm returning what that does. Okay. So now I should be able to do all sorts of things. Let's make a function called pointless. It's going to take an integer a and an integer b. Let's go return 2a plus b. Let's do some very useful mathematical magic. 2a plus b. This is intense. Oh, now we can do the sum is we'll do in Lua you connect strings with a dot dot. We're going to call the pointless function 2a plus b. Let's put 6 and 8 in, so that should be 20. So let's build that. This sum got string, the sum is 20. Okay, so that calls pointless 2a plus b. Return comes straight back to Lua, and it combines with the string, say the sum is 20. That goes straight back to the test function, right there. And because these are lambdas, I can make it do things that are more exciting. So let's, for testing's sake, put a glmvec3 and position in here. go and do a set position, and that's using a capture. It's going to get const glm vec3 pause, and it's going to set end position to pause. Easy peasy. And we're going to translate the camera by negative end position. I'm also going to initialize end position to 0. Okay. Let's get this stuff. Now we can do set position, X is time, Y is time, Z is time. So it should go in a diagonal line. Let's see if this works. Oh, we are now traveling diagonally through the cube. Oh, this is why templates are cool, because you break your back trying to get the template to work, but then because you're not actually coding, you're coding, then once you know that it generates valid code, you throw a bunch of stuff at it, and all the stuff works. Well, that's good. We're going to get right on the diagonal. Pixel perfect. Look at that, it's a nice little equilateral triangle. Isn't that nice? Yes, it is nice, in case you didn't understand what a rhetorical question is. Okay, well, I feel like I should stop and commit what I've done. Let's have a look at what's changed. I don't really care about the script changes. Lewis script, that definitely has some changes that are good. The game, that's actually mostly nonsense. So let's just revert the script changes, the game changes, but keep the script. So let's now have a look at that. Yes, that's all the code. Sure. I get it. Commit that and push it. Off it goes. Okay. But wait. There's more. What I said I was going to do here is now done. So once you initialize the Lua state, you want to open up the libraries so you can get all the random features of Lua. Then sandbox it, which is a whole other problem. Otherwise people can write scripts that have the ability to delete files or create files or other things that you probably don't want a video game to be doing. Now you bind require to my little require function, which is just loading and calling a file. Easy peasy. So this is already looking pretty solid, but it needs to do some things differently. I'm going to put set of strings of required files, because just like with the regular stuff, you don't want to, if you require a file twice, it should only be required once. Or instead of require, you might use the term include or import or module or whatever. It's all the same concept. And from my notes, oh, I didn't notice this. So we just don't do anything if it's already there. Then we put it in, and then we load it up. It's not quite the same as Lua require because it doesn't actually put things into. You can do some nice stuff. I need to adjust how this works, which I might actually do momentarily, because that's nice. Let's look at the script. So you can bind a function, and that'll bind any function you like. You can also call a function. This doesn't have return types. That's one thing it doesn't do. And should it? Probably. Oh, wait, more importantly, this stuff gets wildly out of hand. Oh, look at that, I've just put something stupid in the script. Let's see what happens. Nothing, it doesn't even say a thing. It's just silent, even though this is clearly nonsense. That's because it doesn't have an error handler, and I have an error handler, and it should use an error handler. It's useful. I have one right here, and I'm going to type really fast, and by type really fast I mean I'm going to copy paste this spec bang into here, put it in a namespace, anonymous namespace at the top of the file. Here's a error function. So it gets the Lua state of an up value, it runs Lua trace back, and then it spits out that, and it pops that stuff. So I need to unironically include IOStream here. Right, so what do we do with this error function? I probably need a sorry, I'm kind of riffing this off improvisationally, so I'm like not mentally prepared for everything I'm going to say. So when I'm thinking, I'm usually not talking. And I talk a lot, which says something about how much I think. So we're going to get this error handler function. What are we going to do with it? It's a C closure. So we're going to do Lua push C closure and Lua. And the function is error function. And we're going to put that one up high, so we're going to put Lua push light user data m Lua. So pushing the Lua pointer into the Lua and pushing the thing into itself, and then wrapping it in a little error function there. And that will be at the top. So we need to return return the position in the lower stack where that error function is, because it actually needs it for something. Let's update this. Okay, so that didn't work at all. Boy, standard set is not a thing. Now it is. Oh, it's getting on. I don't want to spend too long doing this. I think once I get this scripting stuff kind of patched up a bit, it's close to complete, I guess. Then once it's complete, I will probably call it a night. Okay, right. So what I'm going to do with that error function, I'm going to put it here. When you call something, you can get some really nice error handling. So we get the error handler and put it in there. That's actually the opposite way around from the... There's nonsense here. This isn't actually going to do anything. Or is it? Yeah, it will actually. It's got a runtime error because this doesn't compile, so this update function never exists, so when the game tries to call update, that's going to fail horribly. But that's not actually really the problem with that script. This problem is, this is nonsense. So it's this lua p call that we actually care about. And the way to fix that one, or not fix, but make it not make it not a complete mess. We need that error handler. And we're going to just call that with the error handler. No, because it's Lua load file that will fail, and Lua load file will return a value if it fails. So we don't want to p-call something if it doesn't even work. I'm going to copy this error thing, but I'm going to, instead of saying runtime error, say syntax error, and that's fine. Get rid of that nonsense. Lua was not declared. Of course it wasn't, because it's mLua for a member function. Okay, so we got a bunch of runtime errors. At the start, it stops. It says test Lua 5 name expected near function. So I can go look at line 5 and say, oh yeah, I just wrote function 3 times and some numbers. Cool. I feel like I should make a more elaborate crash situation, but let's just leave it for now. Okay, so we've got some basic error handling. I also want to get calls with returns. They're annoying to do with functions, so let's just be the worst and say it's just a different signature. If you have a return type, you give a non-const reference to your value up front. And then this is going to be largely the same. You're going to have one value instead of 2, and then you're going to call the getter, scripts internal getter for the return type. Do I need to do standard decay T? Yeah, do I? Let's try it without standard decay. Might work. I'm going to get. No, our value is going to equal. We're going to get the top of the stack. My phone is charged. That's supreme. Okay, right. Is that going to work? I guess I should call something that gives me a value and then I'll find out. Also, duplicated code. So let's just put it in the same place. It's really just this one. This one, I copy pasted it to make that one, so let's just put it up here. We're going to call it perform call. I'm going to put in the number of returns that it expects, which is going to be 1 or 0. I'll just put that here. Bang. So now call, just perform call, no returns, name, args. And this one will perform a call, 1 return type, name and args. Oh, it's really raining. I don't think you'll be able to hear that, but it's water falling from the sky. Sounds really nice. Okay. Everything still works fine. The scripting is looking nice. That's just 100 lines of template nonsense. And a little bit in the CPP file. And I'm not totally happy with this require, because in Lua often you do like local libvids require my lib.lua, so then you can kind of do like lib.whatever, which implies that that is returned into stuff. That's not going to work because I don't handle any return types, but that's neither here nor there right now. In fact, I somewhat don't really care about that at all. Almost. Okay. Let's let script changes. Polish. Is this really polish? Add error handlers to the script. Okay, cool. We're really good for scripts now. I think everything is looking nice. That didn't take very long, so what I would just like to do a little bit before I give up for the night, not on everything in life, is possibly duplicate some of this in Lua. Wow, it is super rainy. So this was the test code where we could fly around like a little spectator camera. What did it need? It needed to know the mouse directions and it needed to know some keys. It also needed to alter end position based on the frame time. But in fact, that's rather just it added or subtracted the speed on. So that's really That's really just like a position and a velocity. So the physics engine is sitting there looking sad. This would normally be done with entities and component systems, but that's another mountain to climb on another day. For now, let's just set an M position, or yeah, position doesn't really. Oh my gosh, this keyboard's left shift is very inaccurate, and often I will get the wrong thing. So position. Well, let's be nice and initialize it to the center or something. Seeing as it's test code, it doesn't really matter if that's a little bit hardwired. The speed will be that. Okay, so when we update, we're going to call that update function, and then after that, we're going to say M position plus equals M position speed times vars dt. And then down here, we are going to translate the camera position by negative M position. So we're going to be able to move the camera around with that speed value. If we give speed to the camera, then it'll move around. But that speed is 0 all the time. However, why don't we just let the script, we'll bind a function into there, set camera speed. It doesn't sound right at all. Set camera speed const vec3 speed camera position speeds. Yeah, sure. I've already used different terms. So we can now set that camera speed from Lua. Actually, this is going to involve like controls, mouse values, stuff like that. And that is probably a fair bit of work. So for now, let's just make it swirl around. So I don't really need to know the time. Mainframe update. Oh, mainframe. I'm gonna make a library because I just. I still need to put data. I want to get rid of that data thing. It's going to be sandbox, so when you require a certain thing, it's going to search in the directories where it thinks it should be, because it's a video game, it's not a dang operating system. Okay, so I'm going to add a little library because I want to add and subtract some speeds and bleed neck. How do I do this? I need to set a meta table. So yeah. So I want to do a vec3 function that will return a table with x is x, y is y, and z is z. Okay, easy peasy. But I also want to set a meta table on it. So I want to do meta table, and in the meta table I want to do some stuff. So if you're not familiar with Lua, everything is a table, and the way you make things interesting is you can add a meta table which describes how that table will react to other tables. So the underscore add function is called on a table when a table is just like a struct or a vector or an array or whatever, or a map or an unordered set. It's like every data container just rolled into one little thing. So if I have A is one table and B is another table, and I do A plus B, it'll call the meta table, I think, of A first and check if the add function exists, the underscore add, in which case it will run that with A and B in there. So you can try adding those two things together. It only has, there's a few, there's add, subtract, multiply, divide, concatenate, a few others that I don't remember. There's indexing and stuff, so when you try and create a new thing on a table, it's whether you can do that or not is dependent on what the meta tables say, and the meta tables can have meta tables, and it can go all over the place, and you can make just weird stuff. You can implement object-oriented programming. You can do all sorts. It's surprising. Add and subtract. Mul is one. So you can do like constant times. Oh yeah, if the meta table doesn't exist on the left hand side, it checks the right hand side. So this should do a coefficient times the value if you multiply. Unma is unary minus. I'm reading these from another screen. I'm cheating. I'm always cheating. How do I want to do unary minus? It's pretty simple. It's just another vectory. I'm not a Lua expert, so I don't know if this is the best way of doing this. Maybe. Concatenation is like is the dot operator for strings and things. I'll leave that for now. Oh, the length operator. That's where you put a hash before it. Well, that makes cool sense for a vector, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Yeah, you can return math.squirt and do a little bit of Pythagoras on that. And toString. No, go to toString. Excellent. So, if you have a vector and you want to set a meta table on it, set meta table on the table, spec 3 meta table. Is that my phone or? Oh. There's a question about what an awful noise is outside. I have to BRB. Watch this, I got an interlude screen. Sorry about that. The strange noise was an alarm. It sounded like a building alarm or something. Yeah, that happens, I guess. And now I can't really remember what I was doing. Yeah, that is really loud. It sounds like there's a building that's being broken into or something. Hopefully it's nothing serious. Yeah, I want to put that Vec3 through there. Okay, I also want to end this because I'm going to put a do at the start. I'm going to set it to be local. Okay, cool. And I'm going to put print imported library. Nice. So now you know you've done it. Cool. So now I can do some stuff with Vec3s. I probably don't actually want to do anything super elaborate. Oh, I think the alarm has stopped. It's all action here, chaos and everything. Is that the alarm stopped? Unbelievable. It's probably a false alarm. It has indeed stopped. Crisis is over. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. I wasn't that invested. So what's nice about circles is that the velocity of a point traveling in a circle is also a circle, and so is the acceleration and any level derivative, I guess. I never really thought about that. That's pretty cool. Local speed is going to be a Vec3. Cool, and then we're going to set camera speed to speed. This is not very complicated. I imagine something with all the buttons and everything and bells and whistles, but it didn't implement it. Also, why is that? Did I just never compile that? Oh, there we go. Hooray. I'm now moving in a circle. Very exciting. Let's make that big so you can all join me on this wild ride. And probably due to the rubbish integrator that I just shoved in there, there'll be a little bit of error, but you should end up back where you start, more or less. Cool. And that's all a little script, so if I want to make it, I want to make it shake me. Up and down whilst I go. Okay, that's not really... I'm going to make that much more vigorous shaking. Whoa, there we go. Up and down. All done. A little script. And that truly is very much 50 frames a second. Fixed time step. Excellent. I mean, that's looking very nice. I don't actually like it shaking, so I'm going to take that back to 0. And let's look at what we changed. We actually put some kind of update function in, put some test code to do with positions and speeds. That's a very little change for quite a bit extra little functionality. Made camera move in circle. So that's really nice. That's, I think, a good place to leave it. And now I need to think about what's happening tomorrow. So break test code into organized classes and structs. Well, that's kind of done. And we're working on this. So what we could do is wrap the game buttons like forwards, backwards, strafe, left, jump, upwards, jump, downwards. That's not a button. I think it's called crouch. All this stuff could become abstract buttons, which are then exposed to Lewis, or you could say, hey, you're pressing this, that, and the next thing. The facing direction also could become exposed to Lewis, so it says, hey, I know where you're facing as well, and we can implement the flying straight in the Lua, or walking around and jumping. There's no collision detection though, so we would have to take some liberties with that, but it could be done. I'll probably do that next time because it's kind of fun. And then I imagine I'll move on to formalizing this stuff in an entity component system inside the world, and when it starts getting entities and components, I can start adding in the reference frame and the 4D stuff, because at the moment this still looks very like silly voxel things, but that's fine, it's all good. The real friends are the journey we made along the way. And with that, and the fact that everywhere is getting broken into, I must bid you adieu. So I think that means goodbye. So GG, bye.